We finally have our first full week of ACC football past us now. I'm recording this right before UNC kicks off against TCU. But the rest of our ACC power rankings are ready. So I'm going to dive right in, and I'm going to start from the bottom. You know, we did ACC tiers last time. Folks did not like that. So I'm bringing back the full 17 or 1 through 17 rankings with every team numbered. Let's get to it. Stanford is at the very bottom. They lost in Hawaii in week 0, and I thought they looked pretty bad doing it. They just don't have a passing game. They don't have the quarterback or the wide receivers. They attempted to just kind of lean on tight ends and running game to shorten the games, kind of like those old Brad Brownell basketball teams that tried to play slow, reduce possessions, make it a little bit more luck-based. And for a while, it looked like that might work. Hawaii's quarterback got hurt, which helped them stick around, but even still, they lost to Hawaii with a pretty notably hurt, sprained ankle quarterback. So not the best look for Stanford. I honestly think this whole Pacific Coast ACC team experiment's just not going to work for them. I'm almost surprised they didn't just go to FCS football. This thing in the ACC is really silly, and I don't see it working for them this year. Andrew Luck is now their GM. Maybe they can get something going. It seems like they're now being a little bit more open to the portal and modernizing. So maybe there's a future for him, but I've had my doubts. Wake Forest is another team. Dave Clawson just did an awesome interview with Larry Williams on his podcast. And he admitted, Wake Forest just can't pay guys to keep them. They were losing too many guys. And Wake under Coach Clawson was always someone who brought people in, redshirted them, truly developed them, and then really got the most out of them. And, it was nothing more sort of symbolic of that sort of dying than when Sam Hartman was there for 5 years and left for year 6 at Notre Dame and said, Coach Clawson said, we couldn't even make them a competitive offer. So just said, go, I'm happy for you. But this week, Wake Forest barely beat Kennesaw State in a 10-9 win in Winston-Salem. And Kennesaw State actually had the ball late with a chance to go in, but some inaccurate passes by their quarterback left them short. But Kennesaw State didn't look like a much worse team than Wake Forest. I think these two teams are going to be in this bottom tier for most of the year. And they're two programs that are kind of starting over. So it makes sense that they are there. But then as we get to this next tier, there are two teams at the bottom of this next tier, which I'm calling the middle class of the ACC. I had these two teams actually in this bottom tier and now moving them up. And that's Syracuse and Cal. I had them at the bottom before, but Syracuse, after falling behind 17-0 to Tennessee, was fairly competitive for the rest of the game. Only lost by 19. Honestly, better than I expected. So I'm not moving them up in the rankings, but I'm putting them in this tier above. Cal actually blew out Oregon State. They were the underdog to Oregon State, but they beat the Beavers and looked pretty good doing it. I don't know how good they'll be, but it's an impressive week 1. They at least look somewhat competent, so I'll give them some credit there. Virginia Tech up at 13. They lost to the Hokies by 2 scores, but that's about what I expected, and it could have been a lot worse. Blowout wouldn't have shocked me. The fact that they were competitive, I don't know that I'm disappointed in the loss. It meets expectations, so they stay in kind of the same spot where I had them when it was just tiers, not real rankings. So they're at 13. NC State at 12. They had a real slog of a win. Really didn't look great in that second half against East Carolina. They lost to East Carolina in that bowl game. They come back, beat them at home, so they avenged the bowl game loss. But they still averaged less than 3 yards per carry. They can't run the ball. They can never run the ball. I don't understand it. It's like a decade of not being able to run the ball consistently. I don't really believe in C.J. Bailey, at least not as a top-level quarterback. I think he's fine, but if you're not going to have a good run game, it's going to be some mediocre offense there. I do think what we saw in this first game was that NC State under Dave Doran is always going to find a way to have a decent defense. That means they'll be in a lot of close games, but I think they miss big playmakers, in particular Casey Concepcion, who's now on Texas A&M. I think they miss him. So I have them down at 12. I don't think they're terrible, but I think they have pretty limited upside. At 11, I have North Carolina. We'll see how they do against TCU. Don't need to talk about that one too much. Boston College at 10. They blew out Fordham, 66-10. Don't really learn a lot. But it's interesting that Dylan Lonergan, he had 4 touchdowns. That's great. They had Thomas Castellanos, who I don't want to say ran off, but benched, and then he left mid last season. He looked awfully good at Florida State. And I do think Bill O'Brien's a good coach, but I do think it's a bit of a failing to have this great running quarterback, but be so dogmatic in your system that you can't utilize them. I feel like that's what happened to Castellanos. Lonergan's a better fit for them, so that's good for them, but it's also kind of a miss to not utilize Castellanos the way they could have last season, and then he'd be there this season and they'd be more dangerous. As it is, I think they're just kind of a okay team. I don't know how much upset potential they have as they go through their schedule. We'll see. But I have Boston College at 10. At 9, Virginia blew out Coastal Carolina 48-7. That's a good start. Don't know how much it means. They beat up on Coastal Carolina in Conway last season, and then they were bad. So temper expectations or just how much to take from that. But I think they should be decent this coming year. They've got NC State coming up, so that'll be a big separation game early on. And then Pittsburgh, I'm pretty positive about Pittsburgh this year. I think after going 7-6, but winning the first 7, losing the last 6, maybe they do it again, but it's a little bit more even, and so it looks or feels a little bit better. But they could be a team that wins 8 games. I think they have potential to be decent. Then we get into a tier that this is actually the last tier. I've collapsed some tiers here because really the separation between these teams is not as big as I had thought. I had this in 3 tiers. Now I have it all in one. And I'll show you the first, or I guess the bottom portion of it now. Duke, Georgia Tech, SMU, Louisville. I have this entire tier in green, including the ones I'm not showing yet. I have them all as, quote, the playoff contenders. I think it is entirely realistic that any team here that is in green could make the playoff. I even picked Louisville in my playoff predictions video to be in the playoff. But Duke, I think, has a shot. They were actually tied with Elon at halftime. Not great, but finished with a 45-17 win. Transfer QB Darian Mensah threw for 389 and 3 touchdowns. I'm pretty high on him. I have Illinois making the playoff over Duke. And I think that comes down to this weekend. It's in Durham. It's at noon. Those 2 teams will play. And I have the winner of that game making the playoff. I think it's probably Illinois, but for now, Duke belongs in this possible playoff contender tier. If you are a Clemson fan, that is a scary homecoming team, especially if Duke proves to be a little bit more than I'm expecting. And they beat Illinois this weekend. They will deserve to be ranked and ranked pretty high. So we'll see. We'll learn a lot about Duke this weekend. Georgia Tech, we won't learn much about this coming weekend, but we learned a lot on Saturday as he went to Boulder and beat Colorado 27-20, which isn't the most impressive win in the world, as Colorado is probably a mid-tier, middle of the pack, maybe even bottom third of the Big 12 team, Big 12 conference. But I think it's a really impressive win when you have the context that they had turnovers, fumble, interception to start the game. Their defense kept them from falling too far behind. Their running game took over. Haynes King was a great threat on the ground. They really were pretty lopsided, running about 2/3 of the time, not leveraging the pass that much. And Colorado still couldn't stop him. Jamal Haynes, a running back, is dynamic, dangerous, electric, big play guy. That's going to be a brutal rushing attack to go against. For Clemson fans, it looks like Tom Allen's largely fixed that rush defense. Georgia Tech's probably going to have a better rushing game than rushing offense than LSU. I don't know if they have the raw talent, but it doesn't matter. I think Georgia Tech could be the best running team that Clemson plays. That's scary in Atlanta, and that's upcoming in 2 weeks. Above them is SMU. SMU just played East Texas A&M, 142-17. So didn't learn anything, but I think they're good. They were good last year, so this only doesn't sway me away from that. Louisville, likewise, they had an easy game against Eastern Kentucky. They won 51-17. One notable, now sophomore, running back Isaac Brown had 126 rushing yards on only 6 carries. He tore up Clemson last year. He tore up everyone last year. And they are going to be another dangerous rushing team. And with Miller Moss, they should still have some decent balance. So I think all 4 of those are teams that have somewhat long shot, but not crazy long shot playoff odds. I think they could make it. I think they're all really dangerous in what is, maybe not a super deep ACC, but these top 7 teams I think are pretty good. Then we get into these top 3. And I think all of them are at minimum playoff hopefuls for any of these teams at this point. If they don't make the playoff, they'll probably be disappointed. And have Clemson next to number 3. As I mentioned, Clemson's defense looked way better, held an excellent LSU offense to just 17 points. After some good runs early, they seemed to settle down and stop the rushing attack. And overall, I thought the defense was great. But the offense did not pick up where it left off against Texas. It seemed like it went all the way back to where it was when they played Georgia a year ago. Offensive line did not progress. Maybe it regressed. The guards were not great. That was something I was concerned about, but I should have been even more concerned. Walker Parks was out, but I don't think it was that because he had the lowest PFF grade, lower than all the guys they played for the most part. So I don't know that it was him being out. I think, honestly, he might not have won the job anyway. Sadler started. Sewell started. I didn't see major busts. I just saw a lack of push in the run game. That offensive line's got to get better. And, Matt Luke's been coaching them, and I do believe he is an elite offensive line coach. We'll find out if they could improve throughout the season or if it's going to take like 2 years until his guys like Braden Jacobs, Elijah Thurman are starters. I don't know. We'll find out. Excuse me. But what concerns me about Clemson is I do think Clemson is probably already better than, 14 or so teams on this list, all the teams below them. But Clemson is a veteran group that doesn't have a ton of transfers. They've played together a while. So they might have less runway for growth throughout the season versus a transfer portal heavy team or a young team. A team like Louisville that brought in a lot of new guys who haven't played together, they might have more room to grow together. Same with Florida State, more transfer portal guys, room to grow together. Or a young team where guys just have less experience and each rep means more. So I'm worried that Clemson has less runway for growth than some of these other teams. But as it stands now, they deserve to be 3. I know they lost to LSU, but losing to LSU by a touchdown, I don't know if that's a whole lot worse than blowing out Eastern Kentucky or East Texas A&M or something like that. And we've seen after Georgia shut them down, they completely shellacked App State and NC State. So against these lesser teams, I think the offense will be fine. I still think Clemson's good. I still think Clemson, should probably win 7 ACC games or so. Maybe they can run the table, but obviously Florida State, Duke, Louisville, still scary. But I think Clemson's okay at this point. Number 2, Florida State. I had them in a tier of their own as a wild card. I had no idea what to expect. I thought the Malzahn-Castellanos combo was intriguing and had a lot of upside, but also could have just been a total bust. It was not a total bust. They went in and they ran the ball all over Alabama, 236 rushing yards. That's exactly what Gus Malzahn does. Seems like he owns Alabama, even with new coaching staffs, new teams, doesn't matter. He beats Alabama. Auburn fans should love that guy. I think Florida State's going to be a menace. And again, if Clemson hasn't not fixed their rushing attack, which I think they did, but if they haven't, that's another team that's going to be held to play for the Clemson Tigers. Florida State, honestly, a very legitimate playoff contender at this point. I know that's weird. They just won 2 games last year. We've seen 1 game this year and completely changing opinions on them. But that's why I said they're a wild card. I sort of have to reserve opinion on them in between every season because they're just a totally new team. They are not a normal college football program at this point. They just reset a roster every year. No idea what to expect. Now I've seen them beat Alabama. I think they're pretty good. And the number 1 is Miami. I watched the entire Miami Notre Dame game. It was awesome. Carson Beck looked really, really good. Looks like he could be the best quarterback in the conference, which is frustrating. But they talked about it a lot on the broadcast. Georgia really didn't help him that much. They didn't have much of a run game, and the receivers weren't good. Miami's receivers were making incredible one-handed catches, and their run game came through for them both in short yardage and when they needed to eat clock. I think Miami's really talented. I kind of just dismissed them a little bit because Miami doesn't come through in big moments, and maybe in a couple of weeks when they play Florida State or by the end of the year, they'll blow it again, as has become their custom. But at this point, they've got the talent. They have the best win in the conference. They absolutely deserve to be number 1. I think they will make the playoff. And luckily, Clemson does not play them in the regular season, but a Miami Clemson or Miami Florida State ACC championship game has got to be the most likely outcome at this point. So we got 3 very, very real playoff contenders. We got 3 teams that probably have at least a decent shot to make the playoff. I imagine the ACC has a really good shot of getting 2, if not 3 teams in the playoff. And I think these top 7 all have real playoff aspirations. That is not just a joke. So there you have it. In green, the top tier, the true playoff contenders. In yellow there, the middle class who some impressed, some we just don't know. And the 2 at the bottom, I think, might be in for long rebuilds. Let me know what you think. Love to hear your thoughts as we do these. Jump in the comments. Tell me who I have been unfair to. Tell me who maybe I'm being too nice to. And as always, I appreciate it. Whether you're a Clemson fan or not, if you could subscribe to this channel, I really, really appreciate it. It helps a lot. Like this video. As always, thanks for watching. Thank you to our sponsor, Ready Vets. If you live in the upstate and have a dog or cat that needs immediate care, Ready Vets is the place to go. If you enjoyed this, please like and subscribe.